Welcome. I hope you are all doing well. Today will be our first of three lectures discussing basic patterns across religious traditions. Then once we get through discussing basic patterns across religious traditions, what we'll do is we'll move towards our first of our major world religions, the Hindu tradition. So for today, let me share my screen with you. And there you have it. And we will be talking about for today, we want to get into the conversation by talking about shamanism, connecting the cosmos, and Axis Mundi. And that will be what we have time for in today's conversation. And then onwards, we'll talk about Middle Eastern prophets and East Asian sages. That will probably be enough for our second of three lectures on basic patterns across world religions. And then from there, we'll talk about scriptural religions and mystery religions. And so that will wrap up our time. So we will have three sections, three brief lectures on basic patterns across world religions, starting with today talking about shamanism, connecting the cosmos, and Axis Mundi. All right, so let's get started. Shamans and shamanism, other words for shamans. So these words could be used interchangeably, would be medicine man or soul doctor or witch doctor. Shamans, they stand as intermediaries, and shamans exist from the oldest kind of traditions that exists across the world. So it's not particular to any one given culture or region of the world, but it's this kind of phenomena we see across the world, across the globe. That is, these people who stand as intermediaries between humans and the spirit world, and typically these type of people are known as shamans. So shamans are typically they're called by their people because it's their community that recognizes they have particular giftings, particular physical abilities to see visions or revelations, or perhaps they've had near-death experiences. There's something about the shamans that is recognized by the community to have a particular gifting, a certain type of power, and certain types of capabilities. Shamans can contact the spirit world in one of two ways. The first way is known as ecstatic, where the shaman stands outside of their lifeless body to enter the spiritual world. And the second is known as invocation, where the shaman calls a spirit within them. Shamans are often involved in hunting rituals and coping with hostile spirits. So the shamans, these intermediaries, these medicine men or soul doctors, they participate within the life of the community in a wide range of ways. And they're recognized for having certain spiritual and physical capabilities and giftings that are suitable for being shamans. So in shamans, again, shamans exist across the world, across the globe. So just some images to share with you. There's a Mongolian shaman in the ritual of summoning the spirits. So again, often they're intermediaries. Here in Latin America, as a shaman in the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador, who's participating and leading a practice with this ritual medicine known as ayahuasca. Just a couple more images. And of course, in South Korea, shamanism is quite popular as well. So we have these different traditions, shaman traditions across the globe in Scandinavia and Norway, Finland, in North America with Native American traditions. We see shamanism. So this is a very common practice. It's one of the earliest kind of religious practices that we see that cuts across different regions of the world. So, and it remains, shamanism remains a practice up to the present day throughout the world as well. So after shamanism, I should say, not only shamanism, but if not a shaman, religious traditions will have other people who are recognized for their special kind of giftings, spiritual giftings, to be kind of intermediaries between God or the gods in this world. And so if it's not a shaman, it could be a priest, it could be a rabbi, it could be an imam, it could be a variety of people. You kind of serve that role across religious traditions. So beyond shamans, another pattern we see across religious traditions is this desire to connect to the cosmos. And there's this recognition that there's something above that one should connect to, right? That could guide them, that could bring them good fortune, and so forth. So the second pattern is connecting to the cosmos. We see this going back thousands and thousands of years, back to the Neolithic era. We see this pattern first emerging. So from 10,000 to 4,500, before the Common Era, there was the creation of sacred areas by assembling huge stones into kind of complex patterns that were kind of supposed to be these areas where the community or the political or religious leaders could connect to the cosmos, connect to the stars. And it was here in these places where the religious or political authorities connected to the stars. It's here where decisions were made after consulting experts who have studied the movements of the sun, the moon, the planet, and the constellations. It was here that political or religious authorities could demonstrate their power, right, by connecting to the stars in these kind of sacred spaces, with the practices and rituals which they would have employed, and in that process demonstrating some sense of power to the community that would gather around them during this moment. The need for public spaces were needed for rituals within society. So in addition to using these spaces to connect to the cosmos, these spaces could be used for doing weddings, our puberty rites, our funerals also could be formed in these spaces where one can connect to the stars and then perform these important rituals for the community. So bringing those two things together, connecting to the stars, and in that place performing rituals such as weddings, again, puberty rites and funerals. All right, so connecting to the cosmos is a pattern we see going back thousands and thousands of years across the world. And just some examples. One possible example of a community desiring to connect to the cosmos is here, of course, is Stonehenge. We're not quite sure what the purpose was behind Stonehenge. It could have served a variety of purposes, but one possible purpose was to kind of connect, right, to the cosmos. So, in alongside connecting to the cosmos, a term within religious studies that is useful, and it relates to connected to the cosmos, is it comes from the Latin, and the term is axis mundi. So axis mundi, it means that there's like these points on the earth, on the world, and on these points on the earth, on the world, are points where the divine and the human are believed to connect most exceptionally. So axis mundi denotes way by which symbolic links are constructed between the earth and the sky. So hilltops, for example, are often places that are denoted for being sacred spaces because they're closer to the heavens, and as such, it could be known as axis mundi. So axis mundi denotes sacred spaces here on Earth where there's this axis point between the divine and the sacred. When there's no elevated space, axis mundi, so these sacred spaces, are often constructed. So examples of axis mundi that have been constructed would include like the pyramids in Giza in Egypt, or Buddhist stupas throughout Asia, or the Second Temple before it was destroyed in the year 70 Common Era in Jerusalem. These would be examples, and I joke here, once again referencing baseball as a possible religion. Baseball, Dodger Stadium in Los Angeles could be Axis Mundi. And so across religious traditions, we see this need to develop and construct spaces where it's believed the sacred and the divine come together. So the creation of sacred spaces, and term for this in religious studies is Axis Mundi, points where the divine and sacred come together. So again, whether it be the pyramid in Giza in Egypt, for example, this could be an example of a constructed sacred space, or the construction and the use of stupas within the Buddhist tradition, which we'll talk about, in a week or so when we get to the Buddhist traditions. Stupas are known for having stored within them relics from different Buddhist spiritual leaders, which have a certain power to them, and thus become these sacred sites of pilgrimage, right? Because of that, they're believed to be a place where there's more power that emanates because of the relics housed within the stupa. So this is a famous stupa in Nepal, and here's some other stupas. And we'll talk about stupas and their importance within the Buddhist tradition, especially the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, in a week or so. And so, again, the second temple in Jerusalem, within the Jewish tradition, it was believed that the presence of God most perfectly, most exceptionally dwelt within the Holy of Holies in that second temple. That's where you found the presence of God most pronounced throughout all the world. And so this, the temple, this is the second temple, the first being destroyed prior to it. This is just a model of the temple. We don't have the temple, the Jewish temple, because it was destroyed in the year 70 Common Era. But we'll talk about that when we get to the Jewish tradition. For now, just here is a model of that temple, and it too is another example of a religious tradition constructing a place here on earth that serves as an axis mundi, a place here on earth where it's believed the divine and the earth come together in a most pronounced way. All right. So Axis Mundi, again, this is what we have left, by the way, of the that second temple. I mean, that was a model on the last slide, but this wall right here was constructed in the first century by a king named King Herod. And so this is called Herod's Wall. And this is also, it's really known as the Western Wall. And this wall is what's remaining of that second temple after its destruction in 70 Common Era. And so to this present day, this wall, right, is a sacred site. It's a site of pilgrimage within the Jewish tradition, the Western Wall. And so, for example, here you see an Orthodox Jew coming up to the wall and praying. And often what Orthodox Jews, or what Jews do, is they make a pilgrimage to the Western Wall, the remaining part of the second temple, and they tuck in a prayer, right, a sheet of paper, a prayer, as kind of a point of practice. So we're going to stop there for today, and we'll pick it up. We'll pick it up next time of the Middle Eastern prophets and Asian sages. All right. So take care. I'll be in touch, and yeah, see you next time. Take care.